you'll never see it coming. You see that my mind is too fast for eyes. You're done, but the time it hit you, you're not surprised.
Alright, and thank you guys for tuning in for this video. Since we all have got the news a few days ago that there is going to be an incoming patch, I thought I would take this time out to talk about some things that I would probably hope to see in the patch. For those of us who are Yu-Gi-Oh players, you know that before every ban list, people start making their wish lists of things they would like to see happen. So I'm going to do something very similar in this same video. So first off, I'm going to start with the Blazblue side since it has the most cast members. I'm going to start with Jin Kizaragi. Jin has a few things that I would like to see changed, mainly in his 6P, in the way that it can lock people down and pretty much force them to take mix-ups. And not only that, but how if you call him out at the edge of the screen, you can even run up and he'll still be there, making it so that way, because of how many hits it has, it will stay there and it will create an obvious mix-up and somewhat of a frame trap as well. So aside from that, Jin really doesn't have too much that I would really like to see changed. I also would like his automatic comeback mechanic being Toga in level 4 resonance be toned down, because the amount of chip damage that can cause is just absurd. So with that being said, I would like to see Jin be toned down just a tad. Aside from that, he doesn't really have too much that I would like to see, you know, just nerfed into the ground. In fact, the entire game is pretty set and fair, so a lot of people are really questioning why we're getting a patch anyway when there's very little that people feel really needs to be changed. So that said, when it comes to starting off here, Jin really doesn't have too much outside of his 6P being a little OP and his comeback mechanic being basically Toga. Outside of that, everything else he has is pretty much fair for his toolkit. Even though I personally have never liked the character, I will not take away that the character is pretty fair for this game. Aside from that, maybe his damage output would probably be toned down, as we do see that when it comes to Jin being partnered up with just about any character, he can make any team's damage output go up at least 2,000 to 3,000 on average, just because he himself is there. So that said, I could possibly see him actually being toned down in that regard. So moving next on to the other character I could probably see getting nerfed a bit for the Blazblue side is probably going to be New 13. And that's because, again, she's another character that in level 4 resonance, she can win games on her own. We all understand that level 4 resonance is supposed to be a comeback mechanic, but not to the point where if you've got 5 bars, with level 4 resonance's bar building, you basically can just spam your supers and do all the chip to get your opponent down to level 4 chip, which is in one hit kill range. So that said, New also has some really janky setups where her 6P combined with very specific characters can make it to where you have no option but to take the mix up. So with that said, I can honestly see them actually touching that and knocking it down a peg or two, making it so that way it's a little bit more fair, or the startup is a little bit longer. Aside from that, her other partner skills, 5P is perfectly tolerable. 4P, I see no real issue with it. I mean, it barely does any damage. So aside from that, she again doesn't have very much. It's more or less just some minor tweaks I could honestly see happening there, but nothing too major. So moving on to the next character from the Blazblue side I can see being touched would probably be S. And that's because, again, she's another character where her 6P can pretty much make a team and create automatic synergy with just about any character she is partnered with. This said, her 6P, unlike Jin's, which has slow startup, has fast startup and actually goes a nice distance very quickly. What this allows is for characters who have a hard time getting in, or zoner teams, it makes it really easy for her to help keep them out and make them do it, and she's able to do it very quickly and very safely. So as compared to Jin, who has, really long startup, if you have a character who can actually hit him from full screen, for example like Batista, she can knock him out of it and making his entire game plan with his 6P go completely away. So aside from that, her 5P is perfectly fine. I see no real problems with it. Same for her 4P. In fact, her 4P, if it's not being used as a, to stop a burst or for a combo, it's really unsafe and, can really dampen anything you're trying to do, especially if you're just throwing it out there. Aside from that, her supers are perfectly fine. I see no problems with those. So again, I can only see, really minor tweaks. But as for the Blazblue side, I think that's the only thing I can see in terms of nerfs. I have heard a lot of people wanting Hakumen's damage output put down. I don't really see much issue with this, given how Hakumen is meant to play. And he is another one of those characters that doesn't have a run, so he needs that high damage to make up for the fact that he can't run. So it kind of makes sense why his damage is the way it is. Outside of that, I can probably see them buffing 9, because 9 actually is really difficult to play in this game, where she needs to be able to touch her opponent. And again, she's another one of those characters who she doesn't get anything because she doesn't have a run, so she only has her teleport. So she needs a way to make it worthwhile for her to jump in, and in a game where DPs are air unblockable, she kind of really needs something to help make up for all the hardship she has to go through to get in. So that's it for the Blazblue side. Moving on to the Persona side, the first and obvious person is Narukami. Narukami has really high damage output, even for him being solo. That said, I can definitely see his damage output being toned down. I can potentially see some of his frame data being changed and tweaked a bit. Mainly in his 5A, I can potentially see that having longer startup, because how fast and how wide that is, it's really absurd. His 5B might be made, a little bit stronger in terms of lowering the startup to make up for this. But outside of that, Narukami, he really does have some really janky things in terms of how he plays. And if I didn't say it at the beginning of this video is really unscripted, because writing a script for all the characters that I'm going to talk about would be really long, and I don't want to have to go through that. So this video is unscripted, in case you're wondering why I'm stuttering or stammering over my words. But back to Narukami, I can really see, if anything, his partner moves being touched again. So again, as you may see a trend here where most of the things that I see will be changed may be in the partner department, or in the partner skill department, I should say. So in terms of his 5P, I see no real problems with it. His 6P, on the other hand, is definitely a little bit weird in terms of how it can create really good lockdowns, so I could see that one being changed. I could also see maybe his 4P being changed, but that's kind of a little bit of a stretch. His 6P can definitely cause a little bit of a obvious lockdown when compared with characters like Jin, who have really fast normals, and then you can throw out, Glaive and then tag into Narukami. It really makes it so that way you have a really long and hard setup that you have to deal with, and you either have to block the entire thing, or you either have to try to reflect it, and you have to reflect it at the right time. Otherwise, you will just end up DPing and hanging yourself, because Jin and Narukami together have really high damage output, because both characters' output as a whole is really high. Aside from that, his supers, I see no real problems with it. Although, if they would want to help me and, do something I would like, they might take that hitbox on the back of Narukami whenever he does Zeodyne, because if anyone who's played Persona 4 Arena knows, even if he whiffs Zeodyne and you end up behind him, you can't touch him until it's over. Otherwise, you will touch a active hitbox and end up right back where you started. So moving off of Narukami, the next person on the Persona side that I can see being touched is a recent DLC character, and that being Mitsuru, and that being because of how her hitboxes are. Her 5A is more obnoxious than Aurier's 5A, and a lot of people do not like Aurier's 5A. That said, Mitsuru's 5A can go really long and far for how fast and how far it is. I'm pretty sure, or I would like to see, I'd rather see that be toned down, because how far that actually can go is kind of a little bit absurd. Outside of that, I could probably see them fixing how tight some of her combos are, because they are really tight and really screen specific. So I could probably see them fixing that. Another thing I could probably see them doing and possibly getting rid of is her JC loops. And for those who don't know, Mitsuru has a confirm where if she can get you at a specific moment, or I believe it's counter state, she can JB loop you all the way to the other end of the screen where she is not present. So let's say she's got you in the corner, you're on the right side and she's in the left, and she's on the left side. She can JC pull you as far all the way possible from coast to coast, and that's a lot of damage that she can stack up by herself without even having to call in her assist. Outside of that, I don't really see anything else that really would probably be fixed for her. I could probably see them making it to where her 6P gets buffed, to where the startup is a little bit faster, because as it is right now, it's really slow in terms of, in terms of how fast it actually goes. It's really easy to stop, so they might make it to where that goes a little bit quicker. So moving off of Mitsuru, the only other thing that I would probably see moving off of Mitsuru, the only other thing I could possibly see for the Persona side is them buffing Yukiko, because a lot of people believe that she is confirmed to be the worst character in the game. So I honestly don't know how they would do this. I'm not even going to bother to speculate it, but I could honestly see them buffing her and making her a little bit more playable, because as she stands right now, Yukiko really requires a team to be built around her versus vice versa, or being synergy. So moving on to the Under Night side. Now this is where things get a little bit tricky, because the Under Night characters are some of the best characters in the game, I feel. And this mainly being due to their ability to backbeat their combos. So, and in terms of where I would start, I'd probably say Hyde would probably get some of his hitbox advantages reduced, making it so that way characters can approach him. I don't know how, aside from anything else, they would actually do to him. They would probably make his 6P Black Orbiter a little bit more easier to deal with, because the fact that you can block it, but if you have your assist out, your assist will still get hit, is a little bit nonsense. There's a little bit of some nonsense right there. So I can see them actually fixing that. So aside from that, I don't really see them doing anything else, because Palebringer for his 5P, if he whiffs it or you block it, he's completely vulnerable, so there's nothing they can really do. So outside of that, I really have no idea what they would do for Hyde. Linnea I have no real issue with, so I don't really think she should be touched. Waldstein, on the other hand, is a character I think may get hit, because Waldstein can dominate the screen because of how much, because of how small the screen is in this game. I can honestly see him being nerfed and toned down, because he can dominate characters who have really small hitboxes that need to get close, and the fact that he can pretty much say, no, stay away from me and let me poke at you, is really kind of obnoxious. So I could see them fixing that, making it to where, you know, he may maintain how much damage he does, and he may maintain how wide he hits, but they may make it to where his frame data may change. So the startups on some of the things he does and the recovery may get lengthened, so that may make it to where certain characters have a little bit of a fighting chance against him. He'll probably most likely still maintain the 20,000 HP, so aside from that, I see no real problems. Next up, we're going to talk about Gord. Now, Gordeau is kind of one of the brain children of why a lot of people think the patch is even being done, because as we saw at EVO, Gordeau's Grim Reaper assist really makes it so that you really have to respect the entire cross combo being used in neutral. You have to respect the entire thing, because if you do not, him or his partner will hit you. This combined with the fact that his command grab right before an active switch is really degenerate. So I could also see them touching that. Outside of those two things though, Gordeau isn't really much of a problem. Sure, his Grim Reaper hits hard and, far, but if you, are smart enough to block it because of all the startup it has, excluding the EX version, it's actually really punishable, so I don't really see them actually doing too much to it. Aurier, I'm gonna just say, personally, I don't see the problem, but a lot of people have said that some of her frame data is a little bit obnoxious. And the fact that her 5P being, a little bit quick, being quick and concise. But the reason why I don't believe this is a problem is because if you're blocking, all you have to do is just block the entire string. And if your opponent is stupid enough to just keep consistently pushing A, they're going to end up with 5AAA, which she can't do anything if you manage to jump out of the way, because she's just going to keep going and she's going to stand there and looking like a fool and get killed for it. Outside of that, I really don't see any real problems in terms of Aurier's frame data. A lot of people also do not like that her 236C is plus. Now, the reason why I think that this should not be changed is because if I'm spending meter to get close to you and I don't have a projectile, I don't see why this should be negative. If you're gonna make this move negative, you're basically killing it so that way this move is never gonna be used. Now, am I saying they should make it more plus? No, I think +2 is perfectly fine. I don't think it should be changed whatsoever. Outside of that, it should be just staying the way it is. If you wanted to buff Aurier in some ways though, I think her 214B should probably have faster startup, because as it stands right now, it's virtually useless outside of combos. Outside of that, her partner skills are perfectly fine. I mean, if they wanted to make it to where 5P calls wall bounce, that would be better, but outside of that, her partner skills are perfectly balanced for what they are, especially given the fact that her 4P is really worthless outside of you being used for Oki or setup, compared to most other characters where their 4P is used to just stop air approaches or bursts. Now for Carmine. All I'm gonna say that needs to be done for Carmine, and this is what I would hope it to be done, is that his frame data becomes a little bit more tolerable, and and also on top of that is that when it comes to how far his moves reach, that be toned down just a tad. So with that being said, I don't really see very much being need to be done for Carmine, because Carmine is a character where you have to let him hang himself. If you try to fight him, he's gonna just kill you. You have to literally let him do all the work for you, at which point he kind of gets a little bit desperate. So if they wanted to do anything, I'd probably say make it to where he might lose more health, but that's just me. Outside of that, his partner skills are perfectly fine, even though I do not like them. I don't think that there is really any issue with them. His no escape, however, which is basically a reset, I may see them doing something to that. I'm not sure what, but I could potentially see them actually doing something to deal with it. That's all I really have for the Underknife side outside of Yuzu. Yuzu, all I want is one thing done. Put her in a wheelchair. Being able to dominate the entire screen is just nonsense. Put her in a wheelchair. That's all I really want done. Now for the Ruby side. Now, I'm not going to talk about Weiss needing nerfs, because she doesn't need anything nerfed. She needs buffed and to be a complete character. Having one of her supers being able to be beat out by normal specials is just ludicrous. That said, when it comes to Ruby, they need to nerf the God button. 5B should not hit behind this girl. Being able to literally say, hey, you're trying to sandwich me, I'm just gonna 5B out and it's gonna be perfectly fine. Her DP can stay that way because DPs are supposed to be, your get out of jail free card, so that's fine. But her 5B needs to be corrected. Aside from that, she's kind of really just straightforward. I really see nothing else besides that. personally. They may actually deal with her rifle shot startup because it's a little bit obnoxious. Same with her gun blasts. They may make it to where it has longer startup. That's the only thing I can guess. Outside of that, I really have no idea. Her partner skills are nothing too obnoxious. You know, her 5P just gives you 1 bounce. Her 6P is 1 shot, and her 4P is just, you know, the one to send them back in the air if they're coming in for burst. So I don't really see an issue with that. Now, Blake, on the other hand, Blake is a character I could honestly see them dealing with her hitboxes and her hurtboxes. The fact that Blake is able to use her 5BB to be able to keep opponents out and her being able to attack at the same time, it's kind of a little bit obnoxious in the way that she really can make it to where she can actually hit you and attack you all at the same time while not having to put herself in harm's way. So I could potentially see them doing what they did to Kokonoi with 3C from Blazblue, for those who don't know. In fact, I'll even jump over to show you. For Kokonoi, what they did for her 3C, which a lot of people had complained about, was that the move was a little bit degenerate because it allowed her to put herself in an attacking stance but not putting herself in harm's way. What they did with her 3C, however, is that they made it to where the cord itself is now a hurt box. So even if Kokonoi isn't close enough to you by what it shows, you'll get pulled in if they do hit it. So I could see them doing something similar to Blake in that regard, especially since, you know, Blake has Kokonoi's colors. But aside from that, I don't really see Yang getting too many touches. She really doesn't have anything too problematic that I would say is a little bit of the... I don't see her having anything that really needs to be, you know, nerfed into the ground. So that's all I really got for this video in terms of what I would hope to see them do for the patch, or what I would predict them to do. Again, as I said, I do apologize for my stuttering and stammering, but this video was not scripted because there was too much to talk about and I didn't want to spend an entire, I don't know, 2 days prepping an entire script to talk about one thing and we don't even know what is in it. So I do appreciate you for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, do comment, like, subscribe, or comment down below the things you would like to see done in the patch or the things that you hope are not done. I'm really interested in hearing people's thoughts as I run through Twitter and Discord, seeing what people are thinking about. So once again, thank you for watching and take it easy.
Wake up, get